What's like the secret to finding like the right person?
It's not like there's a magic bullet, but I would say it's an issue of like surroundings. So like if you're in an environment where, say, like you're conservative and that's important to you, or you're Christian and that's important to you, and you're going to like a secular liberal college, you're obviously not going to have the highest chance of like finding somebody with those values there. So the important thing is to like be upfront about what you want, like if you are looking for something more serious, and also like don't waste your time with people that you don't share values with. We were talking like right away about having a lot in common and leaving like religious communities and being on similar wavelengths in terms of politics and stuff.
Yeah.
So like,
And we met through friends who also had kind of similar views on certain things.
yeah, we had a lot in common with the Texas stuff too.
Yeah.
And if you know from the outset, like, there's going to be all these problems, like, those problems won't go away.
Yeah.
And when you end a relationship, you look back on it and you think, man, like, this thing was a problem.
And I just ignored it.
Yeah, like, from day one, and you just chose to ignore it, thinking it'll get better, and they get worse.
Babe, I knew like that first day that we hung out in Texas
Yeah,
that you were like a keeper.
same. Are you filming me?
No,
Like,
I'm just looking at your face through this lens.
It hasn't been that long since I was live streaming to you guys about how lonely and depressed I was and finding random things to talk about since I was having trouble getting inspired because I was too depressed. But things changed. I moved out of DC, I bought a house, got a serious boyfriend now, and I wanted to share with you guys how that happened. A lot of you have been asking that from me. I'm not like a relationship guru, but I think that maybe I could tell you how I did it and how things worked out for me. Also, I think that right now, during a global crisis, could be the best time to find love. That's how it happened for me. There's just more incentive to try. So for me, it happened during COVID earlier this year when I flew back to California to be with my family through the lockdowns. My boyfriend was also home with his family in LA suburb. We randomly started DMing each other on Instagram, and our relationship was very focused. Unlike my previous dating life in DC, which was like all over the place. Back in DC, I was dating a ton of guys. None of them actually seemed to take dating seriously, even if they said they did. Actually, now that I think about it, I guess I didn't take dating that seriously either, which is weird because I should have. It was very different in my parents' home though, because back in my parents' home, I was sleeping in my little brother's bunk bed. My parents were taking care of me. I didn't have to worry about rent. I didn't have to worry about cooking food. I had people with me all the time. I didn't feel that lonely because I had my family, and I was a lot more stable too. I was feeling more stable mentally. I was with them the whole time. I got bored sometimes, but because I didn't really go out, my dating life in LA was non-existent. When I wasn't with my family, I was in my room working on my laptop remotely for my job because I still had a job. I barely ever got dressed up or wore makeup or anything. I remember one time tweeting that if things continued this way, I would end up alone and living in my parents' house forever. For the first time, I was looking at myself in the mirror and starting to feel really old. We met 4 years ago, like 4.5 years ago, the first time. and it was through mutual friends in undergrad. He was a freshman at UCSB. I was a senior at UCLA. We were both going with our mutual friends to a Ben Shapiro event, and I liked him instantly. He was cute, funny. He had this classic like ADD walk. It was like this. I didn't think anything major would come out of talking to him because I was still religious and lived with my parents at the time. He was going through his own faith changes, so I remember messaging him one time on Facebook. He responded, but it was super brief. This time, like 4.5 years later, when he messaged me on Instagram out of the blue, I guess I was ready for an actual relationship because I responded instantly. We DM'd until I invited him to come with me to look at houses in Texas. As you saw in the last video, that turned into something even more serious, and he's even going to come with me to live in Texas when his classes are over. Rick taught me a lot about love and relationships. He's very trusting and emotionally attuned and open to communicating in a way that most guys that I've met aren't really. It's impossible for me to be even a little bit upset without Rick knowing why. He's very observing, he's very inquisitive, unafraid to demand answers. Maybe it's because he grew up with women, so he understands women. At first I thought it's because he's 4 years younger than me, so maybe he's just more trusting in relationships. But then I learned that he's had even more experience with serious relationships than I did. Those experiences weren't all that rosy, so maybe age doesn't have anything to do with it. Maybe it's just his personality and more importantly, his values, actually. Rick doesn't half-ass anything. If he's gonna pursue something, he's gonna do it right and thoroughly and see it through, and that's because he believes in himself, and he sort of demands you to believe in him as well. No beating around the bush the way that I see so many people our age doing. He made it very clear from the start he's interested in a serious relationship. Very early on, he wanted to get married, and so did I. And so the best part about being open about that from the beginning was that we weren't too emotionally involved to say what we both wanted from a relationship. It was just very easy and natural. Like all things in life, a good relationship is not about who you are, where you came from, what you did in your past life. It's about what you believe that you can accomplish. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but there's a reason why the children of divorced parents are 40% more likely to get a divorce themselves. That number goes up to 91% for children whose parents married others after divorcing. Maybe that's because those kids know that their parents are never going to really get back together. It doesn't mean that you can't train yourself to have your own views on love and marriage, but it helps a lot if you were raised with close-up evidence that yes, a marriage with someone of your kind can be long-lasting. In addition to coming from what I consider a healthy household with two parents who love each other and plan to stay that way forever, Rick's own mindset is very relationship positive. He not only knows about marriage and monogamy firsthand, he values it based on his own individualistic worldview. A lot of that he attributes to his reading Ayn Rand's views on objectivism. Individualists don't judge their capabilities on where they came from, what their genetics are, what their religious or ethnic background is, what their loved one's ethnic background or religious background is. Rick doesn't believe in fate, which is awesome, because I don't either. He believes in your own power and free will as a human being. As such, he's willing to communicate and put effort into his relationships, knowing that it will pay off eventually. Only defeatists who don't believe in their own power as an equal partner in a relationship will give up and say, what's the use? We were never going to last anyway. Hopefully that answered some of your questions and about what I think is needed to find your number one. Maturity is a huge part of it. You got to be in a place in life where you're feeling like your own person and can live independently from your parents or others if you needed to, both financially and emotionally. Desire is another part. You gotta want it so bad that the effort is worth it. But finally, and most importantly, worldview is going to determine your relationship. One last thing I forgot to emphasize. It's gonna be hard to find the right one if you're still not that cool with yourself as a person. So I know it sounds cliche, but the whole thing about how you can't love other people without loving yourself first, it's true. No one's gonna make you complete. You gotta be at least basically complete on your own to be able to be complete with somebody else. And I think that's like a huge thing that people forget. I'm personally very glad that Rick and I started dating this year instead of like 4.5 years ago, when we were both clearly confused and frustrated and going through all these religious transformations. Those things could have unnecessarily soured our relationship too prematurely, and we wouldn't have had what we have now. So definitely start by going out there, get to know your likes and dislikes, spend some time with yourself. You're your own best friend. Travel as much as you can with these crazy COVID restrictions. Watch a lot of movies, go for walks, develop a sense for your favorite arts and literature, and maybe make some of your own art. Through those experiences, you might even meet somebody who likes the same things that you do. Let me know if you feel like it's a little bit weird when I use scripts for these videos. I don't want to look or seem unnatural. At the same time, I feel like I'm so scatterbrained, and I owe it to you guys to have like good quality videos that aren't scatterbrained. So let me know in the comments.
Hi, babe.
Hi.
What you doing?
Driving.